Yesterday I stepped out of the house on my way to work, and I live in a very urban environment. I was noticing the quality of the day. The skies were blue. It's kind of fresh out. And as I was walking between the buildings, I saw at a distance the sun was rising. And it happened to be one of those beautiful moments where the orange and the red and the blue were mixing, and it was an absolutely glorious sight. I stood there observing the color and took a deep breath and went on towards the train. Turns out the train was closed, and so I had to take a bus to take me to the train, to take another train, to take another bus. So I had transportation issues. Somewhere in the middle in there, I decided, boy, I'm kind of running a little bit late today, and I thought it would really lift my spirits was a cup of coffee. I went into a coffee shop, ordered a basic coffee. It took them a long time to get it to me. But when I came out of the coffee shop, the bus that I needed to take was just about to leave when I signaled to the bus driver. The bus driver stopped in order to let me on. Somehow, what had happened was when I saw that sunset, something changed inside of me. Even though despite all the transportation issues, I was feeling very happy. I sat down in that bus with my hot cup of coffee, looking out the window, and I just started to laugh. Spontaneously, without any reason at all, just started to laugh. And I realized that that moment of perceiving that beauty had affected me deeply. And so I decided that I would, in that day, yesterday, I would be a perceiver of beauty. I would try to look for the beauty in all things. And it changed my experience completely. Now, I am a big fan of gratitude lists. In fact, I started this year with a commitment to write 40 statements of gratitude for 40 days, right? And I've been honoring that. It's been wonderful. I love it. However, after I finish my 40 days, I'm going to start another 40 days of writing not gratitude, but beauty. I believe these two perceptions, these two ideas are very high energy. And beauty is something that I have just rediscovered as of yesterday. I wanted to share it with you today. And so we're going to consider beauty today. And we're going to consider why is it important, what is it, and how it can change our life. Juan Enrique Toro greeting you today. Thanking you for tuning in. Thank you for that thumbs up, for subscribing to the channel. Thank you for those wonderful donations. It's really a blessing for me. And so today we are considering one of the Psalms of David. That David is credited with writing many of the Psalms. And this is Psalm 27. I'm going to read verses 1 through 9. And David says the following. This is King David. The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? The Lord is the stronghold of my life. Of whom shall I be afraid? When evildoers assail me to devour my flesh, my adversaries and foes, they shall stumble and fall. Though an army encamp against me, and my heart shall not fear, the war rise up against me, yet I will be confident. One thing I asked of the Lord, this I seek, to live in the house of the Lord all the days of my life, to behold the beauty of the Lord, and to inquire in his temple. For he will hide me in his shelter in the day of trouble. He will conceal me under the cover of his tent. He will set me high on a rock. Now my head is lifted up. Above my enemies all around me, I will offer in his tent sacrifices of shouts of joy. I will sing and make melody to the Lord. Hear, O Lord, when I cry aloud. Be gracious to me and answer me. Come, my heart says, seek his face. Your face, Lord, do I seek. Do not hide your face from me. This is one of the famous Psalms. It's a beautiful writing, and David is having a wonderful experience here. He is telling us that he's got some troubles. He's got armies coming up against him, people within his own house, even division within his own camp. War is rising up. Later on in the psalm, he says that, his father and his mother don't appreciate him. He's got a world of trouble. And in that world of trouble, he's asking for one thing. And that one thing was to perceive the beauty of God. Now, to me, this is this is surprising and absolutely fantastic. Why is he asking for the beauty of God? He could ask for the strength of God. He could ask for the wisdom of God. He could ask for the love of God. He's asking for one thing. He wants to live in the temple of the Lord, and he's asking to perceive the beauty of God. Now, notice that David, despite all these troubles, right? War and problems and challenges, he's not escaping. He's not running away. He's not leaving. He's staying exactly where he is, and he says, I want one thing. I want the beauty of the Lord. Why would he ask for that? He answers his own question. He says, now my head is lifted up. In other words, he has raised himself in consciousness. He's able to see over and above those challenges the beauty of the Lord. And so, to answer our first question, why is it important? Well, it enables us to rise above our challenges. This is the power of perceiving beauty. Right? You perceive beauty, your head rises up, you can go above the challenges that we have. It enables us, right, to face the challenge. And so, let's go to our second question. What is beauty? Well, when we perceive something that is beautiful, there's an emotion of pleasure, right? It's a good feeling, right? And so, when beauty is perceived in any form, there's that sense of well-being, of pleasure inside of us. Now, that can happen, obviously, when we perceive something outside of ourselves, or hear it, or whatever it is, taste it, all of that. But beauty can also be a spiritual practice. And that's what we're going to focus on today. Because we can become a perceiver of beauty. We can adjust our consciousness. Basically say to ourselves, allow me to perceive the beauty in all things. And what that does is it helps us see the beauty in everything. Right? This, again, it lifts us up, but it also puts our consciousness in a certain way. The other day somebody asked me, what is God? If you were to write about God, what would you write? And I said to them, well, it would either be a very short writing, something like God is love, or it would be a very long writing in which I would talk about all of the aspects of God. Wisdom and love and strength and understanding and willpower and all those wonderful things that we associate with God. I could say go one way or another. But then, thinking about it today in this idea of beauty, and wondering, why did David ask for that one thing? It seems to me that if we are perceiving the beauty of life, the beauty of God, that it includes all of the other attributes of God. Perceiving the beauty of God brings forth all of the wisdom, all of the love, all of the strength, all of the peace. It seems to me that beauty is the key to open the door to the power and presence of God consciousness within us. All the other attributes are quickened, are brought forth in that. Now, let's go to our third question. How does it change our life? Well, we just talked about David. He's got a world of trouble all around him. and beauty allows him to lift his head, as we've said. But there's a story, a little more modern story, about a guy named Alan Gardner. In 1851, Mr. Gardner is a naval officer, but he also wanted to evangelize about his understanding of God. And he decides to sail from England, his native home, to South America, to the Pacific side of South America. And in those days, to get to the Pacific side from England, you had to sail around the bottom of South America, or what's called Tierra del Fuego, the end of the tip there of South America. Well, it turns out that Mr. Gardner never arrived in his destination, because as he rounded Tierra del Fuego, his ship ran into some problems and his ship sank. He, however, managed to come ashore, save himself, but he found himself in a terrible land where there was no food, there was no clean water for him. He set up a tent and did the best he could to survive. Eventually he died. And months later, after they realized that he had never showed up, his son went looking for him and actually found the place where his father had died there in Tierra del Fuego. And he discovered that his father had written a journal, about his experience there. And he noted that the last entry of his journal, in other words, the last words that he spoke before he died, you can imagine he was cold, he was hungry, he was thirsty, his body was in a miserable condition, and yet Alan Gardner found the way to write these words, the last words that he were to write. He said, I am happy, day and night, hour by hour. Asleep or awake, I am happy beyond words and the poor compass of language to tell, as I day by day and night by night lie here, do I live and have my thoughts and move my affections in. God is indeed in my bed. Let all my beloved ones at home rest assured that I was happy beyond expression the night I wrote these lines, and would have not changed situations with any man living. That heaven and love and Christ, which means one and the same thing, were in my heart. Now, to me, this is absolutely fantastic. Here's a man who's dying of cold, of hunger, and of thirst. And he talks about being happy, that he's perceiving the presence of God lying with him there in his bed. And I can only imagine that what he was perceiving is in that relationship with God, he was perceiving the beauty of God, the beauty of life, the beauty of all things. He says, I am happy. In other words, a tremendous sense of pleasure. What we said about beauty is that it provokes pleasure within us. In other words, he was having a pleasurable perception. And so that can be a lesson to all of us, right? We're not dying of cold or of hunger or of thirst. And yet many of us allow the trials and tribulations, the challenges of life to bring us down. If we become a perceiver of beauty, right? We become a pleasurable perceiver. If we make that shift in consciousness and allow ourselves to see the beauty in all things, it can radically change our life. It can bring us into the temple that David was talking about, to have that intimate connection with God, and to be able to lift our head beyond those challenges and be able to see that really all is well. I believe that becoming a perceiver of beauty can absolutely affect the dimension of our life. And so we become a perceiver of beauty. Take a moment to take stock into, what do you surround yourself with? What do you allow to come into your consciousness? How much of it reflects real beauty for you? As subjective as that is, what beauty is for you? What kind of music do you listen to? What do you read? How do you surround yourself? When you dress in the morning, are you conscious of dressing beautifully? The clothes that you wear, the way that you show up, the style that you adopt, right? Everything that comes into your consciousness, your reading, your listening, the food that you eat, is there beauty in all around you? This is an important part of becoming a pleasurable perceiver, because that will establish a consciousness, an energy around you that will lift you up and sustain you in a beautiful way, what we know is the presence of God. So to answer our questions, right? Why do we need to be a perceiver of beauty? Well, it enables us to rise above the challenges of life. What is this idea of being a perceiver of beauty? Well, it's a shift in consciousness, right? It's a way for us to understand that the nearness of God is an actual experience. And like we said, it's a key that if we can come into what we could call the beauty of God, it's a key that opens the door to the kingdom of love, of wisdom, of peace, of sacredness and holiness. It's a key to bringing unity awareness, inside of us. It's a key that opens all the attributes of God. And how does it change us? How does it change us? Well, if we become devoted to moving the veil of darkness, of challenge, of worry, of fear, of preoccupation, if we can move that veil aside so that we can clearly perceive the beauty, then what it does is it allows beauty to flower within us. How does it change us? Beauty flowers within us. This is absolutely fantastic, so that when beauty flowers within us, what we perceive is beauty before us, beauty behind us, beauty all around us, beauty within us. And with that beauty, we live in the house of the Lord. Happy, free, just like David, free of his enemies, just like Alan Gardner, free of the fear of death, of challenge. We live absolutely in the oneness consciousness that is the presence and power of God. We live in the house of God. Juan Enrique Toro greeting you on this wonderful day, thanking you for the thumbs up, thanking you for subscribing and those wonderful donations. Please keep them coming. It really helps us out a lot. And as we like to say, today and every week, life is consciousness, and consciousness is life.